With a parallax background, the background scrolls and the person walking stays still and it creates the illusion of movement. The extreme foreground would move the fastest and the sky would move the slowest. The farther away an object is, the slower it's going to move. These are ones done by my students, juniors in high school. But this next one is far more professional because it was done by a former student of mine, Samantha Uroza, as a freshman in college at the School of Visual Arts. We finished part one, which was the sky, the clouds, and the sun or moon. And we finished part two, which was the mountains. And now we're going to go ahead and create the foreground. All right, so now I'm going to go to the foreground. And for the foreground, I could do more mountains or I could do something like trees. So I'm going to go here back to my folder and it says tree images. So let's look at the tree images. Okay, so there's a lot of different tree images. And what I like about them is that they're not, your typical cartoony tree. They have branches, they've got interesting shapes, and that makes them visually more fun to look at. I don't have to download them. I'm just playing around looking at them for reference to give myself ideas. So I kind of like this one, but I'm going to just use my imagination and create my own tree. Now for this, I'm going to use a Wacom drawing tablet, which we have in our classroom, because I'm actually really drawing. Now, the one thing is I'm going to go to my shape tool. I'm going to go to my brush tool, and I'm going to put the opacity at 100%, okay? I'm going to go to my brushes, and I'm going to go to this folder, and I'm going to go to brushes, and if you go up here to general brushes, I'm going to pick just a hard round brush. So I'm going to go with just a regular round brush. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. You can see the size here. All right, so now I'm in my foreground color, and I'm going to need to give it a brown color like a tree. Okay, so that's my foreground color, and now I'm going to take the Wacom drawing tablet, and I'm going to actually just draw. Now, the trick is, because it's part of the extreme foreground, you want everything to be pretty big. And the trees are going to move from left to right. So you want the entire tree to show from left to right, but you also want it to go off the edge of the paper on the top and bottom. So I'm just drawing the tree freehand here. And I'm just looking at it. I'm not loving the way it looks. So I'm going to make it a lot darker. Okay. So here we go. So I need the entire tree to show left to right because it's going to scroll, but I need it to go off the edge of the paper, bottom to top, because it's near the viewer. Okay, so one of the things that you can do is you can just select areas. I'm going to use my mouse to select different areas. And if you hold the shift key, you can select several different areas at once. All right, so let's see if this works. Edit fill. And I'm going to click on this and go to foreground color. All right, so this is okay, but my tree doesn't have a lot of texture to it, and I'm not loving that. So first off, I'm going to do image, adjustments, curves. And I'm going to pull this string down to make it a little darker. Okay, I like that. And now I need to get a bit of a texture on this tree. So I'm going to go back to my tree images, and I'm going to find a texture on a tree that I like. See, this is kind of nice. Okay, so I'm going to download it. I'm going to go back to Photoshop. I'm going to do File, Open. Okay, and now I'm going to use my lasso tool to grab some of this tree. Just going to draw a lasso around it. I'm going to do Edit Copy, Edit Paste, and hide the original layer. Now I've got this tree bark texture. I'm going to do Edit Transform Scale to make it bigger. Okay, and now I'm going to do Edit, Define Brush Preset, and I'm going to change it to Tree Texture. Okay. So now I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to use my tree texture. I'm going to get a slightly lighter color. And I'm going to change the opacity so it's not too overwhelming. And I'm just going to add some texture to my tray. Let's see, make it a little bit less opaque. Now I'm just clicking, so my tree has a texture. I can make the brush larger. I can also draw with a brush, but then it'll smear the texture, so I may not want to do that. Now, here's the other thing is I can also, in addition to changing the opacity, I can also change the color. So that will really give it a texture. And then I can go here and use the smudge tool. And play around with it. Now I'm going to use the eraser. And I need to change the eraser to a more normal brush. So it's just a regular brush. I'm also going to change the size of the eraser and give me a little bit more control. There we go. And I'm going to erase a little bit of this tray, revealing the setting underneath it. Now that took me a long time, and I don't think I really want to keep drawing trees over and over again. So this is what I'm going to do. Layer, duplicate layer. Now, edit, transform, flip horizontal. I'm going to move it. And then I don't want them to be identical, so I'm going to do edit, transform. Oh, sorry. Instead of edit, transform, I'm going to do puppet warp. Now, puppet warp is a lot of fun. You drop pins to keep certain parts from moving. and you create handles by just clicking and dragging. The nice thing is taking this tree and warping it a little bit, because it's a organic object and trees come in all different shapes, it could look like a completely different tree. Hit the check mark, and there's your new tree. If there are parts you don't like, that's what the eraser's for. And I'm going to use my drawing tablet when I erase because I feel like it's a little more precise. Now I can make as many of these trees as I want just by doing layer, duplicate layer, and then moving it over. I can also overlap the trees, and I can do edit, transform, scale, and make the trees bigger. So I'm really giving my forest a sense of depth. Now, and you can move it down. All right, so I've given you the basics on how to create a foreground, how to create a sense of depth,